Coming up on Tech News Today, Twitter's revamping DM. Will it be more like Instant Messenger? Facebook's loosening up for the teens. And Windows 8.1 is here. Oh, that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, October 17th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website, portfolio, or online store. For a free trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT10. And by RingCentral. We do everything in the cloud. That's why we love our cloud-based phone system by RingCentral. Zero startup costs, and RingCentral is $20 a month per user. Try it now with a 30-day risk-free trial. Buy one desk phone, get a second phone free, up to 20 phones. Call 800-543-9980 or visit ringcentral.com and use our promo code TWIT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Maya Zakhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show that takes the tech world and boils it down to a reduction sauce of just the essential things you need to know, starting with the aperitif that is the news fuse. Windows 8.1 arrived today. Maybe that's what the sigh was about. If you have Windows 8 and you'd like the start button back, or you just want to have the latest version, head to Windows Store in your Windows tiled interface. The update is free for Windows 8 users. Windows 7 folks will need to buy the Windows 8 upgrade for $199 or $199. Actually, I got the prices wrong for the Pro. Boxed version with Windows 8.1 will hit the store shelves tomorrow, as well as new PCs with 8.1 pre-installed.
All Things D reports that Twitter plans to significantly update its direct messaging product, but beyond just allowing users to send and receive DMs from others without needing to mutually follow each other. 3 people familiar with the matter say that the company may also launch a standalone direct messaging app that's separate from the Twitter app. This is a turnaround from back in December of 2011, when the company redesigned its web and mobile apps and took the DM feature off center stage.
Acer just introduced the Iconia W4. It's an 8-inch Windows 8.1 tablet with a resolution of 1280 by 800, along with an Intel Bay Trail Atom processor. For you tablet photographers, the W4 has a 5-megapixel rear camera and a 2-megapixel front-facing camera. There's 2 models. A 32-gigabyte model will run you $330. The 64-gigabyte model will cost $380.
Verizon Wireless now feeling more in charge of itself after agreeing to buy out Vodafone's stake, reported earnings that pretty much met expectations. Verizon added 1.1 million subscribers for a total of 101.2 million, 95.2 million of which are postpaid. Nearly half of new phone activations were iPhones during the quarter. Revenue jumped 4.4% over last year to $30.3 billion. LTE coverage is now 99% of the 3G coverage.
Teens between 13 and 17 years old can now post public status updates and photos on Facebook, a former privacy restriction that kept kids in that age group from sharing information with people beyond friends and friends of friends has been lifted. Facebook says the move is in line with competitors by giving teens the freedom to decide whether they want to keep updates to friends or out to the world. The company said in a blog post, teens want to be heard.
They're so with it. Yeah. Android police got its hands on the latest Google Glass firmware and tore it apart to find the delicious insides. Okay, Glass, that was a little creepy. Anyway, Android police found a bunch of new voice commands in the Glass Voice APK that suggest you'll be able to ask Glass to do things like check you into a location, call you a car, and more. There also appears to be a lot more music controls with data found in the musiccard.xml file.
You're a car. Ubuntu also has its day in the sun today. The regular October OS update 13.10, codenamed Saucy Salamander, arrived through, it's only got minor updates though. The Unity interface's dash view got an overhaul, but the X mirror, transitional step from the X server to the mirror display interface, has been deferred until the April update. 13.10 also features the first true release of Ubuntu Touch for mobile devices. The release is compatible with the Galaxy Nexus and Nexus 4 handsets, though Canonical says this release is really aimed at manufacturers to try to get them to create devices that will run Ubuntu Touch.
Michael Bromwich, a former federal prosecutor in New York, who was also part of the government's trial team against Oliver North back in the day, the former Marine Corps lieutenant colonel who was a central figure in the Iran-Contra affair, if you needed a little refresher, and who recently served as the top U.S. offshore drilling watchdog, has been appointed to monitor Apple's antitrust compliance following a court ruling that it had conspired to fix ebook prices. He'll monitor Apple for 2 years under the order issued by U.S. District Attorney Denise Coate in Manhattan, District Judge.
Yesterday, EFF filed a petition with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office challenging Personal Audio LLC's patent called System for Disseminating Media Content Representing Episodes in a Serialized Sequence. The petition cites Carl Malamud's Geek of the Week internet radio show from 1993, as well as other online broadcasts by CNN and the CBC as examples of episodic content that predated Personal Audio's priority date of 1996. The EFF crowdfunded $76,160 in support of this filing.
Samsung Galaxy S4 owners rejoice, for today is the day the S4 is receiving the Android 4.3 Jelly Bean update. Well, the update's actually hitting the international GT i9505 model for now. The U.S. update's going to happen in a few weeks, as well as other markets. Samsung also bundled in some of its own fantastic software, like Samsung Wallet and support for the Galaxy Gear smartwatch.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by our good friends at Squarespace. I use them for my sites. I have TomMerrittBooks.com, for instance, on Squarespace, which means that I don't have to think about the design. I just have to think about what I want it to do, where I want it to point, what stuff goes up there, and they make a brilliant-looking website for me. It's incredibly easy to use, but if you want some help, they do have an amazing support team that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to help you out. In fact, their customer support team won numerous industry awards. Most recently, they got a Gold Stevie for outstanding service. Plus, if you are like, well, Tom, that's great and all, but I'm a businessman. I sell things on the internet. Well, they provide a powerful and flexible e-commerce solution as well, integrated to work with every Squarespace template, lets you sell physical and digital goods. So I was going to say books. If you sell actual hardcover books, you can do that, or you can sell ebooks, or both. One interface does order management, tracking orders, customizable customer email updates, printing, shipping labels, and adding coupons. And you get global reach. Squarespace Commerce now available in the U.S., the U.K., Canada, Australia, Belgium, France, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, and Spain. So come on, Spaniards, sign up. Start a trial right now with no credit card required. Start building your website. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure to use the offer code TNT10 to get 10% off and to show your support for Tech News Today. We thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today. They've been great supporters of us. Squarespace, everything you need to create an exceptional website. All right, let's gather around the old round table. Sarah, Ayaz, and Jason, are you gathered?
Yep.
Because it's Windows 8.1 day. Lou MM's going to hate me for leading with this, but this is one of my 2 Windows 8.1 experiences here. It was my Microsoft Surface tablet. I was very excited to get that RT updated to Windows 8.1, and sadly, your mileage may vary, but this is what happened to me.
Recovery.
Boot configuration error. It was actually the boot configuration data file is missing some required information, so I'm working on fixing that. But Windows 8.1 on my desktop, you'll just have to believe me because I can't show it to you, went swimmingly. It's great. They give you little tips on startup. I don't need them, but a lot of people might. They have a tips and help application. You get that ability to do larger and smaller tile sizes, so you can customize the tile screen. The triumphant return of the start button, plus the ability to boot directly into the desktop so you can bypass that tile screen if you're like me and you just don't use it. You can snap multiple apps, up to 4 apps on a 27-inch monitor. Search incorporates Bing now, so when you're searching, you can just use the same search interface to search files on your desktop as well as to search the web. Improved sync and SkyDrive. You could, as I mentioned, you can download it now. In-store customers and pre-installed PCs will be coming tomorrow, October 18th. Mary Jo Foley is already talking about next. She hears spring 2014 will get another big update, along with a Windows Phone update, but also fall 2014 may not happen. We may go spring 2014 and then spring 2015 for a more unified Windows Phone and Windows Store. They would all be one in that ever-increasing ability to just run Windows as one thing across multiple platforms. That's Microsoft's goal, anyway. Ayaz, what did you think about this? Did you install any? Did you upgrade any to Windows 8.1?
I'm going to be messing with Windows 8.1 later today because I heard the servers were being like pretty much hammered this morning.
It was a little slow.
Yeah. So I'm going to mess with that on know how. When we start the show, I'm going to start installing it. Hopefully later today, I'll have an 8.1 updated on my Windows machine. Somebody in the chat room was saying, "What do you mean by the triumphant return of the start button? It's just a shortcut to the Metro screen. It's going to that little flag is going to make so many people happy."
I said triumphant return of button, not menu.
Okay, as a button. So there you go, chat room. But what I'm saying is that just because it's there, I know people are going to be like, "Oh, this is so much better. I understand it." Because Microsoft took a huge risk when they started this new UI with these concessions and this modification to the operating system. I think that's going to help a lot. The idea of having the consistent backgrounds. So if you have your desktop wallpaper is the same as the one that has your tiled background, it's not as jarring a change. And I think that's going to get a lot of people to accept it. A lot more tools built into 8.1 directly through that modern UI instead of having to go into the desktop. So I think this is the operating system they maybe should have done in the first place, and I certainly think this is the right step forward.
It was interesting to me that they actually make you go to the store. This is not a security update. This is going to be pushed on you. This is like it's a new version of the operating system that you're upgrading, but it's free. Unless you're a Windows 7 user, and then you gotta pay for Windows 8. But if you're a Windows 8 user, it took me by surprise. I was looking for it in the Microsoft Update area. I'm like, oh right, no, it's in the store. So you'd have to go to the tiled interface to find it. But once you get there, it's right front and center. It's their big thing today.
It's a little strange. I think OS X does that now, right? If you go into their Mac App Store, it does the same kind of thing for your updates. So that's going to just be a new behavior that people are going to learn over time. Basically, if you're used in the mobile interface of anything, you think to go to the store, not necessarily the update center. It's almost like Microsoft's they're not necessarily catering to those of us who've been using Windows for a very long time, looking for the Windows updater. It's for everybody who's been using tablets and phones for the past couple of years.
Yeah, this is like Windows 98 SE.
I mean, as a non-Windows desktop user, I look at all of this and I think, oh, this is moving in the right direction. Features seem good. I just don't use it on a regular basis, but I mean, we've talked about all of what was missing from Windows 8, what users were sort of revolting against. So it does seem like Microsoft did a fair amount of listening to, things like a silly start button or whatever you want to call it, not the menu, just the button. I don't know. It ended up being important enough, so it's like a user interface type of a thing. If enough people want it, then go for it.
I don't care so much about the button, but I do care about being able to boot right into desktop. That was the first thing I did. I went right into settings, appearances, settings. If you're looking for it in control panel, and I found that navigation issue that lets me go, yep, just skip the tile, skip the start screen, go right to the desktop every time. Can't wait for that. That was really my only big negative with Windows 8. Otherwise, I've really enjoyed it. Twitter's changing how direct messaging works. Seems like a long time coming because I felt as a little like Twitter was sort of going to get rid of direct messaging. They kept moving it farther and farther away down into the menus. Right
now, I think if you're on the website of Twitter, DMs are hidden under the Me tab. You have to hit Me, and then you finally see a little envelope. And if that's glowing blue, you have a message. It used to be a lot more in your face when you got a DM. But according to All Things D sources, and they said 3 unnamed sources, Twitter's going to significantly update its DM product in the near future. And we've already seen this feature being rolled out right now where you don't have to mutually follow each other to receive DMs. Twitter's been kicking around the idea of launching a standalone direct messaging application separate from Twitter. It's unclear if what kind of form this is going to take, if it's going to be a separate application at all. All Things D says that Twitter's been taking note of Snapchat, and Twitter ran surveys that found people are using Snapchat to engage more with others, I guess, other than Twitter. And earlier in the year, Twitter met with employees from MessageMe, another popular mobile messaging application. And whatever changes are going to happen to DMs, it's apparently going to happen by the end of this year. Sarah, do you want to use Twitter in this like bifurcated way where DMs is its own application and I guess Twitter just becomes public?
Wouldn't bother me. I'm pretty used to standalone messaging apps. I think that DMs really come in handy. You and I have both talked about the fact you get one, you're like, ooh, this must be good. You know, it's something that somebody didn't want to send publicly over Twitter. It's just for me. But it still has a character limit. So that would be something that I think if Twitter really wanted to say, we'd like to encourage people to use Twitter as Twitter, but then as a back-end messaging service between two people or maybe even groups, they're going to have to lift a restriction like that because there's really no point in restricting people in a private conversation. In my opinion, you should be able to express yourself privately. So yeah, I don't hate the idea of this. I've seen online today a lot of people saying this is the worst thing Twitter could possibly do.
Yeah.
DMs in their current form is part of the experience. You don't want to separate the two, but clearly Twitter took a big step back from DMs and is rethinking all of that. So if there was a standalone direct messaging application of some kind, I would probably use it.
I actually felt the same way about Facebook Messenger when they first split that off. I'm like, why would you split that out of the app just to make it part of the app? But it is more lightweight, right? It works better to have it as a separate app. And then it can run. You can say, yeah, let that one send me push notifications, but I don't want to get every push notification from the Facebook app. So a DM app makes sense to me. I have a few friends, especially friends from overseas who don't want to use their text messaging plan, who use Twitter DM to communicate like it's instant messaging. And so it'd be much more convenient if they did it that way.
I think the comparison to Facebook Messengers is a really good one, although I'm afraid if it would go like the way of Twitter Music. Like, okay, here's Twitter Music. We got a brand new app. It's separate from Twitter. And who's using it? So the question is, will this land on its own when it comes to Twitter? Is Twitter going to push it to the point where they're saying, hey, look, our DMs are amazing, so you should be using our messaging service? Because if they really wanted to have a public conversation and Twitter wants to make sure that they're constantly making their content partners and TV companies super happy, they want all of this stuff happening in public. So how much backing are they going to give to DMs considering how buried it's been over the past couple of years? It used to be, like, I think one swipe on the iPad app, you'd find it. And now it's like 2 or 3 clicks. So I don't know if Twitter is going to be 100% behind a product like that, even if they released it.
There's just so much DM talk right now. It's like, okay, now you can get DMs from people that you're not following. Oh, and then there's this controversy that Twitter had to strip out URLs and DMs because what happened is all the spammers start flooding people's DM inboxes with links that Twitter says, we don't want you to be able to click on that stuff or, be tricked by them. And now it's like, well, DM maybe should be its own standalone thing. It's like the whole thing is in quite a bit of flux right now. But I do think that if they got rid of direct messaging, that would be a mistake.
Agreed.
So let's do something with it that makes it a little bit more useful for their millions of users.
There has to be a compelling reason to go to Twitter's DM. If you're going to use somebody else's messaging service, if you're going to use Facebook or WhatsApp or Line or any of these things, what's going to make Twitter special? Because if it's shorter characters.
Well, you know what I think is the way that I usually use DMs is, let's say you and I are maybe doing something, I don't know, where we've kind of got a little conversation going on Twitter, and either there's something where I want to like take it to another level, and I'm like, this joke maybe wouldn't be understood by everybody, or I want to give you like accolades, like, guys, that was really funny. It's kind of nice to just take it to the DM channel because I was already involved in a conversation on Twitter. So I think in that way, it's great because I think a lot of us would agree Twitter is a great place for certain kinds of conversations that just don't seem to replicate that well on something like Facebook or another messenger app.
That's kind of how I use it too. That's why if they took it out, it'd be like, why did you do that? Now I have to go to this other application to do it.
Hey, I liked what you said on Twitter 5 minutes ago.
I'll email you that. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, on Facebook, all y'all can start talking more to the teens that in your cousins and stuff like that.
Tom, probably, unless you've got, a family that doesn't like each other, you might already be that teen's friend, so you might already be seeing their updates. But yeah, as I mentioned in the news views, if you're between the age of 13 and 17, up until now, you could only, when you updated anything or added a picture or whatever, it would blast out to your friends and friends of friends. Now, of course, if you have a lot of friends, that still reaches perhaps many, many thousands of people. But Twitter has decided if you're between the age of 13 and 17, you can now post publicly. The way it's going to work is, let's say a teenager joins Facebook. The privacy settings automatically are set to share only with friends. So it's not as if it's public by default. Then if you choose to change your settings, you'll be asked twice with a pop-up notification, are you sure you want to share this information as broadly? So Facebook is saying, it's off by default, just friends. It's a more tightly controlled experience, but we want teens to be able to express themselves. They can also let people follow them on Facebook, which is a little bit like the Twitter model. If somebody follows my Facebook post, they could see all of my public updates, but we're not actually friends. So it's a little bit of a level back. Now, obviously, you might say, well, you've got this bullying problem on Facebook. Is this the right idea? Teenagers maybe shouldn't have that much control over what they're blasting out to the world. Jim Steyer, who's the founder and chief executive of Common Sense Media, was quoted in an LA Times article along with a lot of other concerned parents and people in rights groups saying, this is about targeted advertising. He says, quote, the pop-up notification before making a post public may also be seen as a ploy that somehow implies that these teens are giving Facebook the green light to mine their content, and that is entirely unacceptable. LA Times quotes a few other parents saying, I'm just worried, my kids, I need control over this sort of thing. So what do you guys think? I mean, there may be a data mining element to this. I doubt Facebook really wants to just give teens the voice that they need. Somebody could start a blog and that can be completely transparent as well. Or is this just kind of keeping up with the competition so that more teens are seeming like they're vocal on Facebook rather than something that's closed off?
I think it's both. I think Facebook, y'all gonna laugh at me, but I think Facebook probably does want to satisfy the teens' expression needs, right? I feel like Mark Zuckerberg really is sympathetic to that sort of thing. I think he remembers what it was like. I get that from various things he says, but that wouldn't be enough on its own. I think he also is like, and look at all the data that we can mine if we do this, and that's probably one of the primary reasons there. And a little bit of it is keeping up with the competition. Facebook not being seen as the choice of the teens. It's where the older people are going is sort of a meme that I've seen creeping into the conversation here. So this is a way to say, hey, come on, teens, we're opening up, we're loosening up, we're not just a bunch of old fogies. I think all three of those are important in various ways, but the business reason to do it is the data mining, and that's got to be the paramount one.
This just seems like a Facebook plan. It's like, okay, we are going to let these teenagers in. We're going to have a sense of privacy, and we'll loosen it up eventually so we can actually data mine, do all this stuff. But first, parents groups won't be freaking out because it's just friends and family, and there are friends of friends and friends of friends. Excuse me. Then we'll open it up a little later. People will kind of forget that we had this feature. It's a pop up. We're making it very clear to you. You're going to be posting this publicly. They're doing things that. It kind of reminds me of like those Vista pop-ups, like, okay, look, we're going to do this. We're going to tell you about it. They're going to give you all this disclosure in hopes of allaying everybody's fears that, they're going to be very public with their kids' information. It just seems like it's almost like Facebook wasn't acting as rashly as they used to. Where they're like, everybody's public all the time. It's like, wait a minute. We'll do this slowly and people won't notice. And we'll even give you pop-ups. It actually seems like a more mature Facebook to actually behave this way.
Sure. And of course, you've got the parents saying, it's going to make my child be more vulnerable to people who shouldn't be communicating with them, and they're too outward facing. But again, the feature's off by default. One could argue, and I'm not a parent, but that parents should be involved in their kids' online lives enough to be able to explain to them why having a public post may not always be the right decision.
Oh, these kids are on Snapchat anyway. They're not on Facebook.
Well, Snapchat is not very public, though. Right. I mean, that's sort of the opposite of. Yeah, that's
You'd
true.
almost rather have them on Facebook where you have an easier time keeping an eye on them than who knows what they're doing.
That's the thing. It's like, don't we understand kids well enough by now? All their Instagram accounts are locked. You can't see anything.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break. We've got more news on how Facebook is making all that money in a second. But first, I want to thank our friends at Ring Central. When we built that Twit studio there in Petaluma, folks, we chose to do as much in the cloud as possible, store documents, we hold meetings there, and we did not want one of those big old PBX systems in the basement. So Russell, our IT guy, said, hey, why not get a cloud-based phone system? And Leo said, no brainer, Ring Central. We love Ring Central. Zero startup costs, no PBX hardware to install or maintain, and we can get voicemail in email, fax messages on our smartphones, so we can live the technology lifestyle, but we're not having problems with people who still use the older ways of doing things. Ring Central also features call functioning programs. The call functioning program, you can program the order of devices that will ring when someone calls your number, like your desk phone, then your smartphone. So you never miss an important business opportunity. You can even choose the amount of rings before the call goes to the next device. It's all there in the Ring Central interface. Ring Central offers all-inclusive pricing as low as $20 a month per user. And you can start right now. Why don't you go do it? 30-day risk-free trial. They have a special offer for our listeners. When you buy one desk phone, get a second phone free, up to 20 phones. So do it. Call the number designated for our listeners, 800-543-9980. It's kind of fun to say, 800-543-9980. 800-543-9980. Or you can also go to ringcentral.com, of course, and use the promo code TWIT. That's ringcentral.com, promo code TWIT. And we thank Ring Central for their support of Tech News today. All right, so where's Facebook making all this money, Sarah Lane?
Well, that would be iPhone users. A study by Nanigans, which is one of the biggest buyers of Facebook ads, so they look at ad buys very seriously, shows that of over 200 billion with a B ads on Facebook, mobile ads on iPhones generate a lot more return on investment than ads on Android. Would you like to know how much more?
How much more?
1,790%.
That's like a made-up number. That's ridiculous.
I read it. I was like, that's a typo. No, 1,790% more return on investment than ads on Android. Okay, so let's break down some of these numbers and try to make some sense of them. Nannigan says, for the first 3 quarters of 2013, revenue per click on iOS averaged 6.1 times higher than Android, and return on investment on iOS averaged 17.9 times higher than Android. Advertising on Android actually ends up costing more than it returns. Specifically, if you look at advertising on iOS, it brings a retailer about 162% more cash than they spend on the ad. So again, return on investment. Advertising on Android returns 10% less than the costs of the ads.
Oh, that's not good.
No, it's not good at all. And what's kind of weird about this whole thing is you would think, oh, well, it should be a lot more expensive for a company then to be displaying ads on iOS rather than Android. The cost of advertising on Facebook mobile apps doesn't actually really vary at this point anyway between Android and iOS. Cost per 1,000 impressions, known as CPMs in the ad world, of about $4.99 for iPhone and about $4.87 for Android. So it kind of doesn't add up. Now, if you're wondering, well, what about Facebook in general? If you look at the desktop side of things, Nanigans notes that click-throughs are up 375% and overall return on investment is up 152%, which suggests that clicking on ads is not the problem. The Facebook ad model is alive and well and doing fine. Now, the obvious thing to take away from this is, well, iPhone users make more money, spend more money, but I think in this group, we know that that can't just be what's going on here. Do these numbers make any sense to anybody?
I look at this and I remember, it's hard to remember this. This is just Facebook ads, right? This is not the Android platform entirely. And
Right.
It's not the iOS platform.
No, just Facebook.
Entirely. So it seems to me it's a really interesting problem because Android is doing fine selling ads, but Facebook can't actually sell ads and make money for its clients on Android. What's going on there? Does it mean that Facebook's mindset is more attuned to the iOS mindset and therefore they're more responsive to the ads and the Android users of Facebook are more critical? I'm not sure why the big platform difference among the Facebook users. That's what's interesting to me.
I just fired up Facebook, both on my iPad and my Nexus 7, just to see if there's any like real discernible difference in the applications. And there doesn't really seem to be much of anything that makes it stand out. So I'm not really sure what exactly is
Maybe
causing
that's the
that.
problem. Maybe what they're doing needs to be tweaked for the Android interface, because right now Android people look at it and go, yeah, that just looks like everything else. You know, it doesn't catch their eye. I don't know.
I mean, all the posts look the same on the iPad version. All the posts look the same on the Facebook, on the Android version. So the point is not to stand out, because that's why you're going to click on them, right? So you're actually going to look at the ad. But I don't. It seems strange. I can't quite figure out why on earth. Is it just because people who use iOS devices like Facebook a lot more, and to the point where they want to install games and buy things for other people, or they're sticker happy, versus Android people? The thing is, Android, it's kind of strange to say Android people, because there's a whole bunch of people who use Androids that aren't like actively doing it. People are using Amazon devices. People are using things from LG that might not even be thinking about being on Android. So I don't know how this even works out.
Yeah, it's hard. Like I'm thinking about it, trying to figure out exactly why that difference, because it is an insane percentage when you look at it. I mean, all I can say about Android's Facebook implementation is Facebook for the longest time hasn't paid, many Android users would say, enough attention to the usability and functionality of the app, that it feels in many ways, it feels like they just took the iOS version, brought it over, didn't really work on making it perform better or faster or kind of give it those usability things that some Android users need. But I'm not sure if that really applies to the majority of people, right? If Android is this OS that so many people have that aren't necessarily nerdy about phones, it just happens to be an affordable smartphone or accessible smartphone, they're not dinging Facebook because they're not delivering it in a hollow, UI sort of sense to fit along with all the other Android apps that Google's putting out. So I'm not sure why the huge percentage different. I honestly can't.
That's probably
put my finger on
why.
it.
At the top of my Facebook app, it says, help make Facebook better. Sign up to become a Facebook for Android beta tester.
Well, yes, and
So
Facebook
maybe
has
they
been
want
doing a lot lately, or a lot more, thankfully, to kind of address the Android side of things, and the beta program is part of that. But I don't know how that affects the ads necessarily. I block the ads. I don't block them. I block them from my vision. I just never see them, so I never act on them.
See, that's how I feel, though. I mean, as a
Like, why is
person
it
who
different?
uses iOS,
I mean, that's
Mostly.
anecdotal, right? We all
Yeah.
say that, but we all actually respond to more ads than we think we do. And again, Android itself is not having an advertising problem.
Right.
It's just the Facebook on Android.
What do you mean I'm
maybe-
responding to an ad more than I think I am? If I don't ever click on them or never buy anything based on them,
No,
how am
self-reporting.
I think he's calling you a
never has
mutant,
an
actually.
error. You're not getting any awareness of anything that you wouldn't be aware
I
of.
mean, maybe there's awareness, but how do you track awareness in something like this? The only way they know anything is if you click.
Right.
Right?
No, it's not true. This is a whole side conversation, but
I suppose.
That's the
people
Samsung eye
always
tracking.
underreport how much they
Are you
respond.
saying that I'm waking up in the middle of the night and clicking on ads?
Pretty
I'm
much
like
what I'm
some sort of a
saying.
binge ad
Sleep
clicker.
clicker.
Turn on a camera tonight and watch.
Oh God, this is worse than I thought.
Touch ID fits.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Google Glass firmware because it's revealing some clues.
Sure. So Android Police took a look into that Glass firmware, and there was a lot of information in the Glass Voice APK. So it'd be the voice commands you could say OK Glass with. You could say take note for recording voice memos in Evernote, post an update to path, find a recipe, which I thought was kind of interesting, capture me a panorama. I mentioned the news fuse, call me a car. These commands that seem really natural to have for something like Glass. Some of these make more sense for the actual Glass versus applications that would work called Glassware with Glass. And the music side, firmware adds an actual layout for music items. There is music controls right now, but inside the music_card.xml included information about album art, album names, track names, artist names. There's also more information about Google's eye control. There's this folder called Gaze that now has a double blink detector. Now, no idea what it's for yet. It could be for taking pictures or something else. But this is another way it looks like that you'll be able to interact with Google Glass. Tom, does this make you more excited, less excited, same as excited as you were before about Glass? Same?
Same as excited, which to me, jury's still out. I've tried it once, and I can see where it might someday do some really cool stuff. But right now, it's very early adoptery. Jason's got Google Glass. I mean, are you still wearing it a lot?
I plan on wearing it later today for something specific, but that's the problem. Like, I don't wear it on a daily basis to, for most of the majority of the functionality that we're seeing here to really kind of make sense for me. I use it mostly as a head-mounted camera, as bad as that sounds. Just on a daily basis, just not something that I wear regularly.
I feel like Google Glass has quickly gone from, oh, this is this cool thing that only a few people have. We all want to try it out. And admittedly, the first time I put on Jason's pair, I was like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. I'm in the virtual world. But it's really become a butt of a joke. And that's a huge problem. If you have enough, there was a restaurant in San Francisco that was tweeting like, anybody who comes in here with Google Glass is well, I won't say the word, but it was basically derogatory term type of a thing. And
A not
I think
nice person.
Well, it's something like that. And I think that stuff really does ripple out. So more features, all of these features sound cool. It's like, hey, this is real world stuff that would be really helpful to be able to tell Glass to do. But there's an issue with it sort of seeming like somehow if you're wearing them, you're like, me, look at me, and it's kind of turned into a bad thing.
This is actually getting me less excited about Glass. When I first heard about it, I was super excited. I'm like, you're going to have this on-screen display. You can get notifications and everything. And then I was realizing a lot of that I probably want out of a smartwatch anyway. Then I'm trying to look at these new features and okay, I have these new voice functions that could easily be built into my phone. I'm not seeing them adding anything that screams, no, this is amazing. You can capture a panorama because you can do this and just tilt. Like, that's kind of neat.
I think these features are important from a consumer standpoint for what we're going to see next in the iteration of Glass. I do think that the next version of Glass might be something that would be a little bit easier to get excited about, because I really hope that they tweak kind of the form factor aspect of it, make it a little bit smaller. It's just right now that this pre-release version, we're seeing all of these updates and all these potential updates on the future as they happen. So it's like, on one hand, it's raised this awareness, but on the other hand, it's almost kind of become somewhat exhausting to people who have never really used Glass or gotten excited about it, were excited about it initially, and now it's like, all right, I've been hearing about it every month. I hear a new update on these things that it does, and a lot of those features are things that my phone already does. So why? Hopefully, this is all in an effort for, at least from Google's perspective, for the final consumer product to be so feature rich right out of the gate that it is exciting. But they need to hold some of these cards close to the chest so that when they do release it, they have something new to kind of spring upon people.
Let's not forget that these are things Liam from Android Police uncovered in the APK. We're almost acting here for it now like Google came out and said, these are the things that are going to make Glass amazing. Right. And these aren't even an announcement from Google. These are buried features. So let's not overinterpret what's going on here.
Truth.
Google has added some stuff to the firmware that we discovered, and let's not condemn them for adding things to. I don't see anything in here that's bad.
No, I completely agree. And and mind you, what I was just saying, these could be the things that they end up announcing with the consumer version of Glass that are kind of surprising and great. There's just a little bit of a mountain to overcome for this kind of form factor to really catch on. By and large, I think.
So I think what Tom is saying is that Google's got to stop not giving us a product. I want an official statement.
I think honestly, I think Google's damned if they do and damned if they don't now.
I was looking up when is it coming out. It looks like the latest rumors are saying Google Glass 2.0 to be released in 2014. So I don't even know what that means. Just come out with something. I want to try it.
I kind of never think about Google Glass. I mean, I'm thinking about it right now.
Maybe when you're sleeping, you do. When you're clicking those ads, you're like, you put on Glass, and you're like,
clicking.
okay, Glass,
update path. Update path.
Update path. I just clicked the Facebook
Take
ad.
a photo of my fridge.
All right. For our last discussion story, we're going to bring in a guest. I want to welcome Irina Bolachevsky, co-founder of Decentralizing.org. We mentioned this the other day on the show. Welcome, Irina. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So Decentralized.org is trying to bring some awareness to the fact that folks are working to make the internet a little more like it used to be. Tell us a little bit more about what your site's doing first.
So primarily it's something we're just looking at how to make this whole topic more accessible to a wider community. So the internet used to be a lot more decentralized than it was, and over time it's become more and more centralized, and now we see these huge companies like Google and Facebook that have so much data on their users all in one place, which makes it actually quite vulnerable, not just for privacy reasons, but resilience reasons. And there are people working on really innovative new technologies, but it's often kind of in little pockets here and there, and a lot of the time for developers to kind of scratch their own itch. And we really kind of want to turn on the flashlight into this world, make it more accessible, make it, kind of focus on how can people who are digitally literate kind of get started and kind of find out more and actually start using things that are more decentralized or supporting them or, caring about privacy preserving technology. And we're sort of starting small. We're starting with video interviews of projects that we think are cool. And, and then and we're looking to kind of expand and turn this more into a movement and sort of give it a kind of name, give it a place. There's a lot of interest in terms of meetups. So we actually had our first meetup off the back of kind of the Hacker News activity in London on Tuesday. And there are kind of things happening in San Francisco being organized. So, I think there's a lot of interest and we kind of we want to make that even clearer.
Now, for folks out there who have been fighting against surveillance and privacy and security, I think they immediately understand what you guys are after. What are some good examples of projects that folks who may not quite get, like, well, why do I need to pay attention to this? What's a good example of a project that will give somebody something that they can easily use and help put the power over the internet back in their own hands?
Sure. So I think there are a number of things. So obviously, communication is one of the key things that is, kind of now in a lot of centralized services, and their centralization obviously means that the power and the control over that user data is also in one place. So using kind of smaller companies makes a difference. So you could use, kind of small private companies, like I think there's like Fastmail and there's Runbox, and there was Lava Bit for email, for example. But also, I think moving towards kind of open source software, possibly self-hosting, so the data is actually on your own servers. And there's some interesting projects to make that a lot easier. Not everybody wants to set up their own server, but one of the projects we recently interviewed, ArcOS, is a kind of like a way to self-host on the Raspberry Pi. And since doing that interview, we found out about so many more projects. So we actually have a GitHub repository on our kind of really decentralized site, which lists over 100. So if you go to Alternative Internet, it lists over 100 projects that are, alternatives. So it could be things like, everything from kind of mesh networks to Bitcoin type kind of protocols. I mean, Bitcoin's really interesting because it provides a model for decentralized governance. So you don't need to have someone in the middle who has all the data and has all of the information to say, yes, this transaction is correct. Yes, no, this isn't. It does it through this kind of blockchain decentralized model using the different nodes that run Bitcoin, which I think is fascinating. So there's like lots of projects that have come through that.
I think the Serval project is one that's really interesting. About you guys did that episode number 4 with Paul Gardner, making cell phone calls without needing a tower.
Yeah, it's amazing because he actually kind of did it for sort of resilience reasons, kind of against hurricanes. So when the mobile network goes down, when the internet goes down, how can you communicate? Communicating is so important. But the really cool thing is that it uses the ability for mobile phones to actually connect wirelessly, to have a wireless network, to kind of ping across phones to actually have a signal. And it could be used underground. It could be used on a mountain. It could be used in conferences where there's so many people and you can't find anyone because the network's down. There are so many uses, and it's a really kind of innovative way to build on existing technology.
And a lot harder to tap if somebody really, wants to try to spy on everybody that's talking. We're almost out of time here, but before we let you go, decentralize.org to look at the interviews that you guys are doing, which is really fun, and of course get the links to those repositories that we were showing. Aside from your site, any other tips on where people can go and learn more about taking back control of their data and their network experience?
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's a few things that people can try and do. So the things I mentioned before, which is self-hosting and using smaller companies. I think there's not a huge amount of really kind of prominent usable projects so far, but I think more and more are coming. So looking at things like Buddy Cloud. Just looking at the kind of set of projects, there's lots of them that are usable now, and lots of them that are supporting open to protocols. Like, I think one of the key things is also, we'd think it'd be insane if you couldn't email a Hotmail account from Gmail, but we have the same thing with Instant Messenger. You guys are talking about Facebook Messenger and everything else. But it's like, why can't I send a Facebook message to, a Twitter DM or to Google Chat? They're not using standard protocols even. And I think it's kind of inevitable, hopefully with awareness and pressure, that something's got to give, because this is not the way we want to communicate. We don't want to be in these, silos. It should be more generic and not and non-tech specific.
One of the things that made me pay attention to this is the fact that as we have more apps and more closed systems like iOS and people trying to put things into silos, a lot of people fear that the internet is going to be ruined. I always am under the impression that the internet always finds a way around, that's been one of its features since it was founded. And redecentralize.org is kind of showing how that's happening right now, how that rooting around is going on. So I'm really glad you guys are doing that. Irina Bolachevsky, redecentralize.org. Thanks for joining us, Irina. It was really good to talk to you.
Thank you very much, Tom. It was great to be here.
Let's move on to the randomizer. We had a straw poll with our live audience today about what our randomizer should be. We kind of do that every day. And the winner, with 41% of the vote, New York City getting wireless EV chargers disguised as manholes. So y'all, if you've got a car that's properly outfitted, you'll be able to just drive over the streets and get recharged.
Well, this is the best idea I've heard in a while.
I know.
This is like those cell towers that are disguised as trees.
Just drive and you're fine.
It's like,
keep on driving.
Got to make sure that when you're walking around the streets of New York, you're not constantly freaked out by what could be a charger. So make it look like a manhole cover. That's going to make sure that there's sanity still in the streets.
Why would you freak out about a charger if you're on foot?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, what difference does it make if it looks like a manhole cover? It doesn't make any difference. It's like, oh, they're round. Okay, great.
And with traffic in New York, you could probably plug in as well. At sometimes, because you'll be stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the calendar.
Oh, all right. Hey, we've got a birthday to celebrate today, and that's IMDb's birthday.
It's so awesome.
Happy birthday.
You've been telling us information about our favorite people in entertainment for many years now.
You're
It was
owned
the
by
first
Amazon.
worldwide
Amazon
website I ever visited.
Really?
It's a database. What a weird name.
Like
Internet
in
movie database.
95.
We still know the kids know what databases are, don't they? You just raised your eyebrow pretty high at me right there.
So if you want to get a shot of that, that would be this.
That's actually pretty good. That's a good arch.
There's the eyebrow.
There we go. There we go.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if the kids know databases.
That is
They know IMDb.
All right, well, fine. IMDb is having a birthday, so everybody go there and wish them happy birthday. Tomorrow, the 18th, Internet Explorer 11 is coming onto the scene. So you got Windows 8.1, IE 11. Things are happening. They're gonna take back some browser market share. I don't know if that's true, but maybe.
Take back the store shelves.
Yeah.
Microsoft.
By any means necessary.
Let's get on to the email.
Incoming message.
IE getting militant. A message from Sabrina. Just finished listening to TNT 862 on if Path has any users outside the tech bubble. I, for one, have been using Path for over a year. I'm an educator. I work in the medical field, and we have 2 kids under 6. For both sets of grandparents and 30-plus family members, we get our feeds, and this is a boon, this has been a total godsend that they don't have to weed through Facebook to see their grandchildren or cousins. Of note, many hospitals here in Toronto advise new parents to use closed social networks to share information about their children, and Path is singled out as the best platform to do it. I think more families are using Path that don't have anything to do with being in the tech bubble.
Doesn't seem to be the case, but it would make sense. Sabrina makes a case for why they should. That's a great use for that. Thanks, Sabrina. Appreciate the email. And that is it for us. Thank you for watching, and thank you for voting in our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. It's a place where you can let us know what stories you'd like us to cover. So get in there and submit some links. Vote them up, vote them down. Do whatever you want with them. Let us know. It helps us put together the lineup every day. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/technewstoday. If you're YouTube inclined, it's one of the ways you can watch the show in video. You can find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT, as if YouTube weren't on the web. It's kind of not. You can also email us, TNT@twit.tv, and you can give us a call, 260-TNT-SHOW. Nicole Lee joins us tomorrow, and Len Peralta returns to illustrate the show. We'll see you then.